Thunder Grunt.
Hey, introduce yourselves.
I am Jimmy George. I am a full-time script consultant and a screenwriter.
And I am Jamie Nash, screenwriter.
And I am Bob Rose. I'm an independent filmmaker, a loaf of a human being, and a podcaster.
Wow.
I feel like insulting myself. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a little think piece made by Kathleen Kennedy called Solo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you pronounce that. I thought it was Sulu.
Sulu. Yeah.
That would be good.
Awesome.
That'd be a good double feature if the
Solo
Paramount
Zulu.
gets off its ass.
The team up.
And Sulu's
Solo
all-
versus Sulu.
Sulo. So, before we're not going to talk about a lot of the errata surrounding this movie, which we could for hours, and we're not going to. The fandom and the box office, obviously we can note that it didn't do the business that they thought.
I think it still made a lot of money, though. It made $150 million its first week.
Made Justice League money.
Hey, man.
I mean,
I'll take
and
it.
it probably costs around what Justice League did in marketing and stuff.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was more than what it made.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I note, not that this is a screenwriting thing at all, but I feel like this movie, because of the type of movie it was, cost too much.
Agreed.
I think they should have spent Deadpool money on this.
Didn't they say it was the most expensive Star Wars movie?
Yeah, but
That's just crazy.
That's insane. Why would you do that?
yeah, it just feels like it should be the $125 million Star Wars movie, not the $300 million.
Right.
Honestly,
Star Wars
Jamie,
movie.
I'd argue 80. I wouldn't go above
Yeah.
80.
They just don't make movies for 80 anymore. Franchise.
I mean, what was Deadpool?
Deadpool was 125.
Was that-
100
that's
the
ins-
second one, the sequel.
That's insane that that's considered a mid-budget now.
Yeah,
What
that's
the
kind of
hell?
normal.
Anyway, we're going to talk about it's good to know, but we're going to talk about the script
Yeah, the script.
because we're not that
On,
podcast.
and I think there's a lot to learn from it personally.
I do.
liked it,
I do.
yeah.
Well, who wrote it? I think everyone pretty much knows from those clickbaits, but we're going to talk about it.
The Kasdan boys.
Kasdan boys. Did he used to
And the
go by
guys from the
Jake
Lego
and now
movie.
he goes by Jonathan? Did he change his name?
Did he change to Jonathan?
I
didn't-
thought his name was Jake.
No, you're thinking.
Kasdan.
Hold on.
Is there another writer
I think
named Jake
there's
Kasdan?
there's another director named that.
Oh, that's where I'm mixing them
You're
up.
just mixing up some
I was
first
like,
names.
Kasdans.
Yeah, no.
The Kasdans.
So the Kasdans wrote this. Obviously, he wrote Empire.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I mean-
wrote. He's written the majority of what we love about
Of the
Han Solo.
great ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, the great
like
ones.
he knows the character better than any other writer like living.
I think he was brought in to consult on Force Awakens.
Yeah.
For the solo.
No,
did he get
he's,
credit?
He's co-writer on
Did
Force
he?
Awakens. Yeah,
I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
Positive
You're
it's
right.
J.J. Abrams
You're right.
and yeah, and he said
You
he
are
came
correct,
on
sir.
first. They offered him Solo before he did anything with
That's
Force
right.
Awakens.
I remember that.
So Solo's what hooked him back into the Star Wars universe because he was done with it. But he had this opportunity to tell the beginning, and then he ended up telling the ending. So what perfect way he told the ending, and then he told the beginning
That's
of
so
the character.
weird.
Yeah, right.
After all this time.
After all this time, did
It's
he
weird
ever...
to think that in the 70s you told the middle.
Right.
That's so odd.
So I'll ask you both a tough question. This is probably a question you're not going to have an answer to. Who is your favorite screenwriter? But writer-directors don't count.
Ooh.
My favorite screenwriter ever of all. You're not talking Star Wars, just
ever.
Did Bob Gale direct anything?
I don't know, but I
gave me my answer.
No, honestly, like if you said Lawrence Kasdan, which a lot of people do, I would give that credit, even though he did direct things.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I
you know,
love the movies he's directed.
Yeah, not Tarantino, for example. Like a lot of people would answer
Yeah.
that Tarantino.
Just
or
writer, right?
Just think of them. Think of their projects that they just wrote.
Yeah.
So things they didn't direct. Who's your favorite screenwriter? And think of their body of work in that sense. It's a tough question.
Yeah.
It is a tough question. My mind is filled with 36 years of bullcrap.
Yeah.
The reason I ask it is because
Ed-
Lawrence Kasdan would be the guy that came to mind for me.
Except that he directed.
Some things,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the things he didn't direct, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Empire
Dude, he
Strikes
came
Back.
out of the gate with 3 classics. I mean,
See,
it's-
you guys are you're in the clouds. Mine would probably be a comedy person.
Right, yeah,
I might
yeah,
say
yeah.
like Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson or
Sure.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
dig in deep, it's
Yeah.
going to be like a more personality based comedy writer instead of a genre writer
Yeah.
for me. So
Yeah, no, he came out of. I mean, what was it? It was Raiders. I mean, you got it in front of you, like.
Yeah, it's so right out of the gate, I think he was working on Continental Divide,
Okay.
which they saw him and they liked his work on Continental Divide,
Yeah.
and that's why they hired him on Empire Strikes Back, which is strange. Raiders as well. I read
Back to
something
back.
recently when we were doing Poltergeist research. I don't know if they tried to get him for Poltergeist or it was one of those movies Spielberg tried to get him on.
Wow. Okay.
But he was already busy on Empire or something. But anyway, it's I don't know if the timelines line up for that. And then after that, he kind of went off and did his directing career, even though Body Heat was his huge.
Yeah,
that was
his
huge.
thing.
That was
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
Yeah.
And especially for its time, and it kind of reinvigorated the noir
Yeah.
kind of thing again. The Big Chill,
God, he's just got so many in the beginning. of his
underrated
career.
movie that I loved as a kid, Silverado.
I love
Silverado's great.
Silverado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't seen it. He went back to that with Wyatt Earp a few years later. The Bodyguard, he wrote.
I did not.
I just
know
watched that the other
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
I
Green.
actually did not know he wrote The Bodyguard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he did a long time ago, and it took many years
to
for
get
it to
to
be
it.
made. And I can't remember who was originally cast in it, but it was somebody different. And then after that, his career kind of went on almost like slightly more adult.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm looking at it. It's like Mumford, he wrote.
Yeah. That's fun.
The comedy movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dreamcatcher. He
he's
right?
on that with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like Dreamcatcher, even though it's a mess. It's like a fun mess to me.
I like the concept.
Too much
It's a fun
marzipan.
mess. It's a fun mess.
And then that kind of brings us to today.
Yeah.
Is
This was
he your
great.
answer?
He would be.
He said he's his answer.
Okay,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I have
What
a
did
hard
you
time
say?
coming
I
up
don't
with
know,
that
man.
answer.
I think I just figured out who I should say.
Who?
Ed Newmeyer.
Ed Newmeyer. So what are your favorite movies of Ed Newmeyer?
Jamie.
What I
RoboCop.
RoboCop and
Starship Troopers.
okay.
I mean, like,
Yeah. What else do you need?
See, that's the that's the one weird thing with your favorite screenwriter is usually it's 2 movies. It's not 5 or 6.
I'm pretty sure he worked on Total Recall, didn't he?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to actually look that up. I don't actually know. It's a hard question.
See,
because,
I love RoboCop. I'm less of Starship Troopers, so that's why I asked. I was like, maybe there was another one I didn't know about.
More almost for Starship Troopers, honestly, because to me that's more of a meta subversive movie, even so than RoboCop.
No, people love it. I just
I'm
not as much into it.
Like that tone that he obviously was great at. I
Mhm.
really dig that.
There's a guy named Bruce Joel Rubin. Do you know who he wrote Ghost and Jacob's Ladder back to back? That's a hell of a one-two
Ghost is a
punch
weird
there.
movie. You know,
Dude, I
you know who
love that
directed
movie.
that, right?
Great structure.
Jerry Zucker.
I did not know that.
Jerry Zucker
What?
directed Ghost.
That's why there's all the fart jokes.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that a weird one? That's like that, and the fact that Leonard Nimoy directed 3 Men and a Baby.
Yeah, that is
Those are always the two that I
Whoopi
surprise
Goldberg
you with.
thought she was in for a different movie.
Yeah, but
This is gonna be like an Airplane for next generation.
But so with Solo, do you think for when I heard about all the drama that we're not going to touch upon
with Lord Miller,
with all that, I was like, oh, that's such a bad, like, why did Disney do that? After seeing the movie and then being reminded that we were in the hands of the storytellers who know Han Solo better than anyone, it made sense to me. And what I imagined, I didn't read up that.
And when that happened, Kasdan was always the person interviewed. Like they were always getting quotes. Like he was involved in the decision to fire the directors. It's almost like a showrunner position.
Yeah,
you know, he almost had the pseudo showrunner position.
And do you think they treated it that way?
It's hard to know, but he definitely is given in Kathleen Kennedy's mind. And keep in mind, remember what I said about he was like on Poltergeist. Kathleen Kennedy was on Poltergeist. Right. He has a long history with Kathleen Kennedy.
Trust. There's trust.
There's
there.
trust there.
And respect.
And when he comes and says, "I'm not sure about what's going on here," I'm sure she listens.
Yeah.
You know.
And
So you think they were actually like corrupting the character to a point where he
Absolutely.
wasn't comfortable with
that
comedy?
had to
I
be
guess.
that had to be what happened.
There's part of me that
It's a lot
wonders,
of speculation, but
yeah, there's part of me that wonders if it was just more their process, because the one thing Ron Howard did say, he said the script didn't change. He said the script was the same script.
Right.
He was using the same script they were using. So to me, I'm almost wondering if it was more the process.
yeah, the improv.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine is they were really happy with the script, like everybody involved, and then Kasdan was seeing what was actually being shot compared to what they wrote, and was like, "Fuck." Like this is changing the characters'
Right, so the whole
origins
tone I
that we've
intended.
put so
And
much effort
It's
into.
it's really a tonal question.
Yeah, tone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
which
talking.
just getting into. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, how do you represent tone in a script?
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, it's such a tough question. Well, it's less for me about how it's about a balance, and with this, I don't think everyone I know, not everyone I know, a lot of people I know who dislike this movie, they do have tonal issues with it, and I think they think it changes tone and becomes too self-aware at every one of the Easter eggs, which I disagree with. I think it matters, the performance matters, and that's less of a script thing and more of a performance thing. And I mean, of course the script informs the performance, but every time anyone in the movie is doing an Easter egg information, like, oh, I'm gonna have to give you a nickname,
yeah, right.
it doesn't become like, I'm gonna give you. No one's looking at the camera like, I'm gonna give you a nickname, right?
I would also say though that this story is less tonally serious than say Rogue One,
Right.
or Game of Thrones. That it
Right.
can support a little winky wink.
Yeah,
every
it's
now and
fun.
then.
It keeps it fun.
It's
from-
not a heavy movie.
It's not heavy,
right,
No.
Which I think has thrown many people off because we're used to heavy.
right.
We're used to
Recently.
Destiny.
Recently, yeah.
Right. Well, when you come back, you always
Yeah.
got to go heavy with the
Yeah,
nostalgia and the lore, and
But it
this
feels,
doesn't have
I think
that.
tonally it's more in line with the first one. I think it feels more like the first Star Wars than any of the other movies.
A New Hope.
Yeah. A New Hope, yeah.
Well, both are right. You're
Episode
both right.
Episode 4. But
Episode
from a teaching standpoint, I'm not sure how to conceptualize how you start with tone, but what I know what you don't do, and that is you suddenly change like into a different movie from scene to scene.
Right.
And for instance, I'll give you an example
Okay.
of two things that I encounter all the time. I get a lot of horror comedies, and we'll have a scene that opens the story and it's hilarious, right? It's gory, but it's also hilarious, right? And then 75 pages, there's not a single moment of levity. And then the last 10 pages, it's just as hilarious as the first 10 pages were, right? So you have this crazy imbalance. It's like, it feels like two different movies, even though they're both horror movies. The genre is aligned, but the tone is not aligned. And that's like something that I constantly see in scripts where people get the genre right? It constantly stays, it's a family drama, right? It constantly stays family drama, but then occasionally, like, all of a sudden they'll break the fourth wall,
Right.
for no reason, right? And it's just like one line in the script that breaks the fourth wall, and it's like a complete tonal that doesn't work, right?
Unless you're like some kind of insatiable artist that's trying to say something.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but on
Yeah.
that,
There are some movies that purposefully tonal shift. Few movies.
That's
that
its
purposefully do.
shtick, though.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
do it on purpose.
That's,
Right.
Because
yeah.
it's like, what? You know, but
Yeah.
But and another example, yesterday I was reading a script that was a Columbine-esque drama,
Okay.
right?
Lots of yucks there.
Yeah, lots of yucks.
All the Three Stooges
And,
stuff. In there. Oh, boy.
everything was played very, very grounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was behaving very real. There was minimal dialogue. All the drama was handled the way that it should be if you're making a grounded
Yeah, it's
reality
respectful,
drama.
right.
Then all of a sudden, there is a 7-page dialogue scene
Ah.
where the mother is talking to the teenage children who are dealing with this. And it's just 7 pages of dialogue of her talking to her kids about all the hardships of living a life where people don't care about you. And it turned into a public service announcement. It was like a completely different movie. It was like all of a sudden. So there's a slippery slope there, because even though it was still dramatic,
Right.
it changed into a different type of movie.
I used to always talk about tone. I do a lot of co-writing and I work with directors and stuff. I always like to establish what the tone is with my collaborators. And the way I tend to do it is I make a scale. I've actually sent my scale out. My scale, there's one scale I always say, Batman, you could base on a tone. Because you have, on one hand, you have the Adam West Batman. And maybe that's at a 1 on your scale.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have Christopher Nolan, that might be a 9. And, you know, it's super serious.
And then Tim Burton's in the middle.
Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher comes at about a 4, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I like to establish that meter, you know, with this is when I work with collaborators. But I find if you do that for yourself, you know where you're going. You can say, am I Joel Schumacher or am I Christopher Nolan or I'm somewhere trying to weave it away.
You can't mix it though.
Yeah.
And if you keep asking yourself that question, it might help you for what you put into the script. What you put into the script's a big deal, though, because tone can be established in a screenplay. It can be in the action description.
Right.
If you get too jokey or winky or Shane Blacky, maybe that doesn't work for your Schindler's List screenplay.
Right, your voice doesn't. Yeah,
but it might work for your cool Lethal Weapon funny movie.
It matters. The narrative voice matters. Yeah, the tone
and on the flip side, you can help represent tone for your comedy movie by being a little fun in the action and things like that too, without getting carried away or being a little light, like you're, you know, in a good mood.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that the tone is even reflected in the narrative itself, in the action descriptions.
Yeah, and then characters' dialogue always is the big, I think that's what you were talking about, a lot of stuff with the characters and things.
Oh, yeah.
But also in
they have to be in the same movie, right?
They have to be in the same
what
movie.
you end up having a lot of times is you've got everybody's in the same movie, and then you have that one character that's in a completely different movie.
It can work sometimes if it's played for like they're
if
like
it's
the
intention.
outlaw.
They are the
the
weirdo.
intention.
But
If
it's
it's
the
not,
examples I'm talking about.
Like
they're not supposed to be that smart.
The droid in this movie, for example,
It's in a different movie.
Is in a different movie. Yeah, it's very preachy and
like on the tone thing.
Yeah.
From my perspective, as I've always approached it, is it's a sliding scale of humor, just amount and reality.
Yeah.
And,
that's a good example.
It's really just a matter of like either, you know, like 1 is Schindler's List and then 10 is Airplane. And that's really
and sometimes
how I look at it.
It's not purely humor. Sometimes it's just a stylized universe where
I say that, I
Yeah.
mean like it's not just jokes and gags. I mean like the actual reality of the movie.
Right.
You know, is it a joke? Is it a parody?
You know what?
Sliding
It's
scale,
almost
you know.
like the level of artificialness, and that's not a bad thing to say.
It's like a trauma movie versus.
I talk about it as
right.
self-awareness. It's a self-awareness even within the characters in the story.
Yeah.
And like does this
we could
movie
bring up Deadpool, the movie that is making more box office than this.
No, Deadpool,
it's a great example.
Deadpool is a great example of something that, you know, finds its crazy tone and goes in all different directions.
Still it manages to find heart.
It does.
And its levity with extreme like sadness too.
Yeah. There's
one detail that came to me when I was thinking about this tone question was because tone is often in the details. Like there's some, if you put really specific details, like how you decorate your room or what you're talking about in your action descriptions and something. But this is a very subtle or small one that I was thinking about on the way over here. What's Emilia Clarke's name in this?
Kira.
Yeah.
So her character at one point, she meets up again with Solo and she's like, you wouldn't want to know the things I've had to do to, you know, find myself here. And there's a couple ways you can go with that. If you're Game of Thrones, she probably slept her ways through the brothels of Tatooine.
Right.
You know,
I took it as murder straight up.
and I took it, I think in that movie, because it was vague, I think you kind of think she had to kill people.
Right.
She had to do something.
People.
If you got specific with I had to sleep my way through Jabba the Hutt's brothels, it would have been a different movie. It would have been
changed,
the dark,
yeah.
You know, so it's those specifics that I think are the keys.
That's a good point. That's another comment on your scale. It would just, instead of be like your Batman scale, it's like how explicit are we getting with the, you know, even
also, I think there's something you said too, is tone also separates, for me, obviously with characters versus the movie itself. You know, like for instance, I guess in this movie, like Donald Glover has his own, as Lando has his own tone. Yeah. But it doesn't ever challenge the reality of the movie.
Not at all.
You can have an insane, goofy, weird character.
Totally.
Right. So the movie
I don't
itself,
want to make it sound
actually
like
has kind of a dire tone throughout the whole thing. I mean, they obviously were even trying to light it like that. Like this feels like kind of it's a fun movie, but it feels like it's rather
there's primal stakes for sure.
Yeah, no, but it's down to earth. It's not silly.
No.
you know. And
Not at all.
we wanted to talk a little, but if Lord Miller stayed, I guess that's exactly what they wanted. They were actually making the film itself maybe a little bit more garish.
I think
maybe
so.
a little bit more cartoony. Maybe there'd be, some sound effects in there that they wouldn't like, some improving they wouldn't like. You know what I'm saying? The movie itself
You're
changed,
saying
not
a
the
Jar
characters.
Jar tone. No, I'm just...
I mean, no, let's be honest, though. Like, the end of Phantom Menace, Jar Jar becomes a cartoon character out of nowhere in a movie that didn't really kind of have that then.
He doesn't fit.
He doesn't fit, and that's why people fucking hate him.
If this movie had tonally chosen to make fun of itself, which it doesn't do,
right,
then I don't think it would have worked. And in my mind, I'm just making assumptions that's what was happening.
That's what we've seen from them before.
Exactly. Yeah. Not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way
at
all.
They're two of my favorite working filmmakers. I love them. But
it's kind of like the Jack Black Green Lantern movie we always wanted to see. That's a different movie. It doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's worse than the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie.
Right.
It's just a different movie.
Different. Yeah. And I do agree. Like, they probably were... They were tweaking it in a way that it was making fun of itself.
I mean, it couldn't be more apparent what happened. I mean, they hired the old man who made Willow for Lucas to replace the new kids in town that are making the big comedy movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly it proves exactly what they want.
It's like if you hired Zucker to direct Ghost.
What a weird thing.
We were talking about this.
He also did Dragonfly, isn't
it? Wow.
Jerry Zucker, man, he had a
such
weird
an
career.
Interesting career.
But I mean, do you guys think that affected the box office and the bombing with that tone? Do you think the tone would have been more successful?
I don't think.
I don't really have an answer for the box office bombing thing. I mean, my only answer is that it's a smaller. It's the Ant-Man level. Like I said, and Deadpool made a ton of money. So, but it's the smaller movie. It should make smaller money. It's more closed.
It's not dire. You don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even think.
Well, I'm not saying a movie needs to have a reason to exist, but you don't need this to understand the episodes of Star Wars at all.
After I came out, I said it reminded me of like if I had picked up a really good solo graphic novel.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jamie, you always define shit the best. When you said that to me, I was like, that makes so much sense.
Well, yeah, it feels like the most.
Mm-hmm.
There were these Han Solo adventures when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Adventures at the Mos Eisley Cantina and things like that. And I loved those. And to me, it felt like everything I always wanted out of those realized.
I'll just come out and say it. Like, this is better. I love Indiana Jones to death. It's like my favorite thing ever. But I never was a big fan of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. And this is just that.
Yeah.
But better.
Yeah,
This is the Young Han Solo Chronicles, and it's better than that.
Oh,
they did that.
There's no Teddy Roosevelt.
I know. I just didn't. It's not rewatchable. I've tried.
But like, okay, so what?
Not at all. I've
so
tried.
What did you like about? What did you guys like about the movie?
Jamie, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I liked about it. When I was originally watching it, what I was really struck by were the action scenes, like the moment-to-moment action sines. I think they do a really good job of
the pacing.
The pacing,
oh, yeah.
but actually like the work inside the slug lines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think that can be very informative to me as a screenwriter. You have to write that stuff. That stuff is written. Like a lot of people think you don't write it, you just write they fight.
Yeah.
And then the stunt coordinator comes in and takes over. And I hate when people say that. I hate when people say, I don't want to do all that because that's the director's job. What this movie does is it does a great job. One of the key tools I think you can use, and this is William Martell, the guy we like to talk about.
Love William Martell.
He calls them rug pulls. And rug pulls are just moments of good news, bad news.
Yep.
Good news, bad news.
Back and
Good
forth.
news, bad news. And if you just look at like that first action sequence, that one that opens it up, and I'm doing this from memory, so I apologize. You can help me out.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Like he shows up with the coaxium or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a fake out, and he's trying to trick the monster, the boss, whatever that thing is, figures it out. So good news, I'm gonna trick. Bad news, nope, I know what you're up to. Good news, I have a thermal detonator. Bad news,
a rock.
That's BS. It's a rock. Good news, I throw it through the window. Shh, it breaks.
Yeah.
The sunlight, we can escape. Bad news, they're on our ass, like, coming out after us. And it keeps going on. And when you write action scenes, it's just a chain of this good news, bad news, good news, bad news. If you do it right, if you see a lot of, and I'm sure you see this, Jimmy.
Yeah.
A lot of new screenwriters don't do that. They
Not
just
at
do the
all.
good news.
It's
just
good.
like
it's just forward
he throws
progression.
a rock, he gets in the car, he runs out the door.
It's just
you know,
forward progression, nothing backward.
It's a
ever.
simple thing to do, but you have to force yourself to do it. And if you
Spielberg's a master of that.
Spielberg's
indie
a master.
movies are that.
Absolutely.
The indie movies are absolutely
And
that.
if you look at that whole action sequence, whether he's in the land speeder and he gets trapped by the walls closing in on him, or I don't know if it's a land speeder, whatever they call it, the speed, you know. And then even to the end, where good news, I'm going to get through the door. Bad news, she gets stuck behind me. It even ends on a good news, bad news, good news, bad news.
Yeah.
It keeps going and going like that. So that was the one thing when I was sitting there, I was like, it did a really good job of this between the slug line.
Oh,
action
totally.
scenes.
And every single one of the sequences has like major forces of antagonism, major things that they have to overcome, you know, that are defined at the beginning and that are consistently throwing complications at them that they have to that cause the bad news, you know, from beginning to end. And it's a really good, I agree completely. This movie, like Indiana Jones, it shares a lot with Indiana Jones.
It's a better indie movie than Indy 4.
There you go.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%.
It's very
better.
serialized. It's a bunch of mini movies.
It's old school
in the
pulp.
best way.
It's like I can understand why some of our younger friends don't like it because it is like an old school pulp serial type of thing.
We should just jump to that because we were going to talk about that, and we can talk about everything we like story wise. But it's actually when I was sitting there, and I'm always doing this. I'm thinking about you, our podcast listeners. I'm trying to break the movie down into 3 acts or something. And this was one I had trouble breaking into true 3 acts, or it is 3 acts. You could do it,
them,
but I think it's more because it's serialized.
Serialized.
It's I have the same trouble maybe breaking down an Indiana Jones movie or something. But what this does really break down well into is this thing that you just mentioned, this mini movie method, as Chris Soth calls it, or as it was originally called, the sequence method.
The sequence method, yeah.
And we talked about it before, but I thought maybe because this one breaks down so well,
for it.
we could go into it a little deeper. The sequence method is a method that basically breaks a movie down to 8 mini movies. And the interesting thing about it is back in the day, like when I'm saying 1930s Hollywood,
right,
or whatever, they used to break the movies down to reels, and they roughly were analogous to 8 reels. So they, those, I'm trying to think of some famous Hollywood studio mogul. But he'd be like, Louis B. Mayer.
Louis B. Mayer is fine.
He'd be chomping on a cigar saying, we got a problem in reel 6. He wouldn't be saying act 2. They talked reels back then.
Yeah.
The sequence method kind of breaks that down in a screenplay format. Yeah. So if you want to, I mean, we could break this one down super quick.
I got them broken down, and so I have very few negative things to say about this movie, but one of them is about this sequence method, and that is, I actually think it has 9 sequences, and it has one too many. Okay. So the first one is and we talked about this in the Avengers one. How to really construct a good mini movie is to give each of these sequences a central story question, right? So it's got one dramatic question, and it's a visual goal. It's always the same. When you have a story question, it needs to be answered visually, right?
One question per
sequence.
Per sequence.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
okay, so the first sequence is will Han and Kira, and then it's Han, whatever.
Right.
Will Han and Kira escape Corellia to basically escape enslavement, right? And they get to the border. He does, she doesn't. So but it's
yes,
answered
no.
yes,
yeah,
no. That's
yeah.
all that matters. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be yes
or no.
It just,
Yeah.
By the way, that's kind of a rug pull. So you can see where the mini movie inside of that is the good news, bad news.
Right.
Well, if you string these together, they tend to be good news, bad news as well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And you can do that.
Like chunks, they alternate between the chunks.
Yeah.
They tend to.
Good, bad, good, bad.
Good, bad. Okay. So the second one is Han joins the Empire, right? And so the entire next 10-minute chunk of the movie is about Han and the Empire, right? In that warfare. And we know that he joins it to become a pilot. Why does he become a pilot?
To fly back to
fly
Corellia.
back. So there's another central story question, and that is, will Han escape the Empire? And they give him how to do that is by convincing Beckett to join his crew. So he has an objective. We meet Beckett like 1 minute into that warfare sequence, and then his entire objective for that sequence amidst getting up and
meeting Chewie and everything.
Meeting Chewie.
Will Beckett take him?
But will he convince Beckett to take him to escape the Empire? Right. But it's all to get to that main goal to get back to Corellia. So that goal.
By the way, this might be where you and I differ on our sequence, and I didn't do it necessarily to time.
Well, like this, we're differing.
I have a feeling I lumped the next sequence in with this one. Like I put him as a big chunk. Like, will he be able to buy his ship to get off the planet? And then when the heist fails.
Gotcha.
So that's probably where you.
I think I fall more in line with Jimmy. On that.
You're probably right. I was doing mine more.
I'm not arguing.
Yeah. No, I'm not arguing. I just feel like that was where I would break it up. Is where you're saying.
It
Jimmy.
makes sense.
Sense.
Mine was a bit long.
Because you know why, and that's just because of how the movie presented it. Because when they get on it,
they're
like,
that's
a moment of victory.
It's a huge
where
moment
they're
of victory.
celebrating
Because he becomes a deserter at that point,
also
and that
convinces
defines his character.
Yeah.
It is also the moment in history of this franchise where Chewie now owes him the life debt.
Yeah.
And
so it's a big moment.
They define a bunch of moments like that. He saves
they
his life
do,
like 3 times in the movie.
But this is the first time I feel like where Chewie's like, oh, he's not full of complete shit.
Yeah. Good call.
Also, sequence breaks, often what you see is they have location changes.
Yep, huge locations.
So that sounds like
that's a good point.
And with a galaxy-spanning franchise, it's really easy to break things up.
Yeah, and especially when you're serialized. Like if you look at the Indiana Jones movies, almost every sequence is like some new spot.
You just wait for that map.
No, you're right. Yeah. Well, that's a good. No, it's a good teaching thing though. The major location shifts change the sequence.
Yeah, if you're breaking your movie and inherently you have like these location changes, that might be where your sequence breaks.
Yeah, because a lot of the big popcorn flicks, like we talk about, one of the requirements is 8 big set pieces. You know what I mean? You get your 8 set pieces that define the movie.
The sequence method is almost like an 8-part web series with a cliffhanger in between each part.
That's great. That's great. I love that.
Oh, keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. So you lumped these together, but
I think you're right though.
So,
I'm convinced.
So C is the train heist sequence. And so they set up exactly, they make visual goals. They're like, here's what we're going to do. They give its own little preparing to storm the castle.
With the campfire. The
campfire. They tell exactly what they want to do. They tell the audience, here's what we're trying to do. And the question becomes,
the most character work they've done in the movie so far.
It's great. Right? And they say, will they successfully steal the coaxium? It's as simple as that from the train. And so that's the entire sequence is, they steal it, but they don't end up being able to take it home with them, and they lose almost their entire crew in the process. So and no, that's another rug pull.
Another good news, bad news.
Also, now I'm new to this, the rug pulls. But would a rug pull be the injection of the other Marauders? I forget their names.
That's a surprise.
They were unexpected.
Yeah, the pirates. Yeah, well, they talked about them though. They introduced them. I wish they had introduced them visually, but at the campfire they bring up the possibility of them arriving. So you're expecting.
But even I think it is a good point that there's a scene where it's like, oh, this is going to be easy.
Because they kind of get to the Marauders. Point, and then the thing show up, and it's like, what? Wait, there's more? Okay.
Yeah, good news is we're going to do this. It's working. Bad news is, the Marauders are
We have to fight these other motherfuckers.
This movie, in a lot of ways, is like if Speed was a space movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It just keeps things often pile on.
Oh, yeah.
Like hard.
In great ways. Yeah.
Yeah, no, in good ways. Yeah. It's a compliment.
To the movie.
Yeah, I'm complimenting it.
I had never really thought about it that way. It's like speed in space.
Like 3 or 4 speed sequences. if you just made mini speeds.
Yeah.
I know, weird reference, but
no, it's a good one.
Speed's a greatly constructed movie, so
I love Speed.
Yeah.
Keanu. Okay, so that's the third one, the train heist sequence. Will they successfully steal the coaxium? Okay. And yes and no. Yes, but they didn't. Okay. So the fourth one, sequence D, is now they got to go to this Dryden Voss, and the question is basically about survival with this one. It is, will they convince Dryden to allow them to live and make it up to them by delivering the original thing they promised?
Just say, do they get a second chance?
Yeah, do they get a second chance?
Second chance, yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, they do. And it's answered visually, right?
Right.
Okay. And you'll notice about each of these things, they have their own individual stakes. right? And they have their own individual antagonism, you know, that's defined at the beginning and at the end, like, and they have to overcome the complications that those antagonists give them. Okay, so at that midpoint, that's like a really solid midpoint at the end of that sequence. The entire movie becomes defined in that midpoint, and everything that comes after, they simply say it at the very end of that sequence. I was like, whoa, this is the rest of the movie so clearly said in one single line by Dryden Voss. They have to get a fast ship. They have to steal the coaxial from Kessel. They have to refine it on Savareen, and then they have to deliver it back to Dryden Voss.
And by the way, in a different structure, that would be the break into Act 2.
Into Act 2, right.
But the problem is it comes really late in this movie.
Right.
And that's why I think the sequence method to break it down, reverse engineer, is better, and maybe even to break the movie. And that's why it feels more serialized.
Right.
And you both are positing, too, that like the Kasdans were like directly thinking of this structure when they wrote this.
Oh, absolutely,
like,
100%.
You haven't like heard them say it. That you're just
this is assumption.
This is just us illustrating the sequence method.
The way that they have.
Also, they've done it in like so many movies.
Do you guys mind me continuing to go?
No,
like,
I think no.
I just like
you know what? We hardly ever go through the entire movie.
Yeah.
So
like, let's fucking do it.
I'm more just doubling down on what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Jimmy, shut up.
No. I was just curious if you guys were like kind of a guessing game here on what the was going through the Kasdan's mind with structure.
It is guessing, but I mean, it's pretty obvious.
It's pretty obvious they were doing this. Okay.
To me, as a person who deconstructs
the more you talk,
the
more I see this in the indie movies and in the
it's in all movies, dude.
But in their movies, especially.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And their movies have inspired a lot of other movies.
Right. So they kind of wrote the book, so it's like,
So then, but that's what I love about the midpoint is because it does sort of serve as like a false victory, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're like, okay, we're alive, we're survival, our freedom is still present, and it does all the things a good midpoint should do, and it gives us a clear, new question and new main goal for them to do. Okay, so the next
which is, can they do
all of these little things? So it's a bunch of little mini goals.
So it's a chunk with 8 new chunks inside of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay because
it's a heist. The heist should have all those.
Where I see a lot of scripts that I get fall off the rails, not to be punny, is at this point in the story, and that's because they haven't figured out how to make it interesting to get to the end point, right? And so one way to do that is to come up with a bunch of little goals.
Yeah, Raiders seems like the perfect example. He needs to get Marion, to get the headpiece, to get the staff rod, to put it in the map room, to get the, so
all those little things. Yeah, but they make it interesting. Okay, so then the sequence E, which is the 5th one, is all about Lando. And that is, we got to find Lando because he's got a ship that's fast enough to do this job. And so the question is, will they convince Lando to join their mission so they can use this ship to complete the rest of their task? And they do. They answer it. Yes, they get the ship.
While doing some, backpedaling with the franchise.
Oh, yeah, the franchise mythology, but they used it in a way, it was dramatic because you had like all the trials and tribulations at the table, all that good stuff. But it's its own sequence. It's like 10 minutes long. I didn't time it with a stopwatch, but I definitely looked.
No, it feels, you're right.
Okay, so that's how I know that there's an extra sequence because I literally was like, I'm pretty sure this is too long, and so I timed it.
I just want to say I saw this with Jimmy the first time, and I walked out and I had no clue how much he liked this movie.
I kept my mouth shut.
I did not. I was underestimating. I thought you were like lukewarm at best. So this is very intriguing.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So will they convince Lando to join their mission to use his ship? Yes, they do. It's a visual goal, and they give us an answer. Okay, so then the next one is the Kessel Mines heist, right? And it's like also it feels more like any of the other sequences, like a mini movie, right?
Everyone's a location shift still.
Right,
yeah.
And there you go. There's a location shift. Yeah, exactly. I had not thought of that. I like that.
And you have a few like separate mini movies happening in this with different characters.
Right. All the characters
even
have their
L3 has like her own movie going on.
Right. Yeah.
Separately. Yeah.
But we know what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
They make it clear. It's clarity.
Almost like a chapter in a book too.
Yeah.
You can split the POV. You can fracture it. So maybe it started as Solo's POV, and now it's fractured into like 4.
And that's okay. That works really well.
Jamie, that might be actually almost a better way to frame it for like students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chapters and books.
Chapters,
better than like sequences.
This is Lando's
chapters.
chapter. This is
because a chapter in a book is a definitive point of ending for like when you're actually going through the story.
I like that.
Yeah.
Use that. Okay, so then the next one, and this is the one that the first time I saw the movie, I didn't think of this as its own sequence. So the Kessel, let's go back. Kessel Mines heist is, will the team steal the unrefined hyperfuel from the Kessel Mine vaults and transport it without exploding it, right? So that's like that and the answer is yes, they steal it. But then there's an extra sequence, and first time I saw this, I didn't think of it as an extra sequence, but it's like 9 minutes long in itself, and that is the Kessel Run where they have to get and they have to.
Oh, I definitely thought of that as separate.
Dude, I experienced it as part of the Kessel Mine thing. Like, and the second time I was like, holy shit, this thing is its own 10-minute beast.
TMI, I had to go to the bathroom really bad the second time I saw it, but I knew this, I love this part so much that I actually just sat in pain and waited.
That's my favorite sequence in the
I was
movie.
like, I'm not going to sit through this whole movie and miss my favorite part.
Because you're finally seeing all those little promises of this particular premise. Like Han and Chewie piloting the Falcon.
Right, but for me, it's not even that. I just really like the way this was handled. It's so intensely weird.
Yeah.
And the way they did it. It's not... It's rare when I can say that a franchise goes back and does something and it doesn't look or sound or feel anything like I imagined it.
That's awesome.
The Kessel Run to me was not what that was.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was surprising when I saw it.
And what an important sequence to nail in this movie, right? The Kessel Run. It's like the one of the few things we know like a little bit about.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the question of that is, will Han pilot the Falcon out of the whirlpool, the gravity hole? And yes, he does. Mm-hmm. And we see all that, and that's its own thing. Okay, so I call the next one the snooze fest. Okay, so this is the one, and I timed it. It's like 11 minutes long. That is, okay, get the coaxium refined at Savareen, the desert, right?
Yeah.
So
which is answered immediately because they just cut the shots of them
right. Well, they
so,
refine it, right?
Yes,
okay,
it's refined.
So the problem with this is, while it is eventful, while there is twists and turns, in a movie that's filled with action and excitement, all of a sudden we are at the beginning of third act where things should really kick into gear, and it is 11 minutes of talking heads. Mm-hmm. It's just 11 minutes of people standing and talking and nothing happening. There's good news, bad news. There's aha moments, which I'll get to next. Mm-hmm. But nothing really actually is going on visually. It's just 11 minutes of talking. And in a movie, this for me is the only part of this movie I don't like. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Strangely too, there is no real location shift so much.
No,
I mean, they go back into Dryden Boss's ship.
Yeah,
but it's kind of is the area that just kind of drags a little bit.
It drags, and
it's what made it feel like a TV show.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, the air's pulled out after that awesome Kessel Run sequence that was really exciting. Yeah,
there's few ways to top that though.
No, I know, you're right.
I don't know what they would have done. Once you get back to the refinery, I don't know.
No,
what
they would no.
Like a shootout
my
or something?
suggestion would be that but I understand that they were trying to.
By the way, Jonathan Kasdan wrote that part.
He's got some growing up to do.
My suggestion would have been not like I'm a better writer than
how
fucking
dare
Lawrence
you,
Kasdan.
Jimmy?
You could have combined the two into one thing. Like they just didn't need to refine it. They could just like deliver it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to have this whole 11. Anyway. So that's where the extra one is for me. That extra.
No,
sequence.
they needed the
11
refinery
minutes on. I know. No, the story made it. The story earned it. It's just it was very unexciting.
They could have made it a cooling temperature thing, I guess, but
it doesn't matter. So that's the extra sequence for me. That's like this 11-minute thing that they're just standing in the desert talking for 11 minutes. It's like so much
until they get to Dryden Boss's
until they get
office.
the bosses, and then it kicks back into gear, and then it's like. But the goal has changed now because originally they wanted to give it to him, but now they are trying to trick him into taking, and they make you think it's fake. So it's another question.
Don't you feel like the push on this too is that yes, the goal changed, but also so did their morals as characters?
Yeah. No, it doesn't matter.
That's the
No.
reason.
I was saying that as a cool thing.
Yeah.
They shifted the question. Shifted. I think it's an interesting change. Yeah, I like it. Yeah,
for sure. They had to kind of reset the psychology.
Yeah. But that's okay.
That's fine.
All that matters to me is that the question that we need to answer is clear. We understand what the fuck our characters are trying to achieve. That's all that matters. So anyway, there's my breakdown of the sequences.
That's good.
That's
really good.
That is extremely thorough.
Yeah, we've never done that before.
We have not.
I tend to use the sequence method when
Is that okay?
No, it's good.
It's absolutely fine. I think it's good. Yeah.
I think this is the perfect movie to do it for. I've been using the sequence method a lot lately. I come at it with all the baggage of having all the other, save the cat's trubies in mind and stuff. So I know what the things have to do. But I just find it a really easy way to crack a story. Like if all I have is, okay, this is going to be the Han Solo Kessel Run movie, and then I can just start breaking it down like what parts I need, and I find it very useful. You
ever heard the Trey Parker method of writing?
Oh yeah, if
instead of saying and then it's therefore, right?
Yeah.
And then therefore this happens.
Yeah.
Not and
it
then
makes
this
everything
happens.
consequential.
Yeah. Right.
You can't just swap two sequences, so to speak.
Yeah,
scenes,
And with these serialized movies, that really works out.
Oh
well.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Everything is consequential to the
happens.
next thing.
Yeah.
One advantage and Kasdan's one of the people that I love for this reason. So 2 of his movies that he's written, I couldn't really figure out how they were going to end. Like I you know how you watch a movie nowadays and you pretty much you're riding the rhythms of it. You're ahead of it. You're totally ahead of it. Kasdan had 2 movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark. I had no idea when it was going to end. I didn't know. I've talked about that before. Empire Strikes Back. I really didn't get a feel like it. Didn't feel like it was coming to a conclusion I was ready for or whatever, even though it was very climactic.
Right.
And I think it's because he approaches it, at least these action movies, from a kind of serialized.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep giving you action. And then I'm just going to kind of give you one big one and we're out.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good point. Yeah. I never really thought about the way it affects
that format.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think the one big one is more the personal big one. It's like this one's personal in the end. Like we'll do the personal one. Yeah. And then we'll get out.
So I don't know if you can recall it at least, but I thought it did a good job So a couple other things I wanted to talk about is I'm not sure what the moral premise of this movie is, but there's definitely a lesson that Han learns. And what did you?
It's funny. I didn't really catch a strong one from this because one of my problems with this movie, it feels like, and this is a problem other people have said, so this isn't unique to me, but it feels like Han. I call him Han. That's my thing.
I say Han.
I say both.
So
I'm pretty sure it's Han. But
Han.
It's the same guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have a huge arc in this movie to me. I think he starts out being kind of a hero at heart, but he lives in a world of villains, so he has to adjust. But in his heart, he has a code, and he's not going to do certain things. There's a part of me that wishes that we had seen the learning process where he learns to fire first. I don't think we see that. I think he'd fire first. I think he's the same.
Checking the box.
I think he's the same guy as he was.
I feel like we're separate on it because I think, which I said to Jimmy when we saw it, I like the fact that Han is kind of shallow as far as a character.
Yeah.
I never thought I didn't want him to have that much.
It's tricky. Can you imagine if they started him out as Luke Skywalker, some gory grab person? But we'd be like, we hate that. We don't like that. That's not our Solo.
Is simple, and he's like a rock. He's kind of always been and always will be Han Solo.
Yeah.
Of course he's gonna be a human being and have decisions to make and feelings and emotions. But I don't want to see him be different and turn into Han Solo. So I kind of like that. This movie,
it would have been a trick. It would have been hard. The only thing I could think of, because a lot of reviewers who didn't like the movie, I did like the movie a lot. A lot of reviewers,
I think we all like the movie.
Yeah,
we did. Right now. Yeah.
They said that prequels. This is the problem because we know who he is, so seeing him become that thing isn't good. But I think it can be good. Like I watched Better Call Saul.
Yeah,
and that's what that is.
Right?
It's a story. He's an interesting character to begin with, and he's going to turn into an even more interesting character.
Right.
I think they could have done that here. the trick is,
but Han was never that interesting. And later, he's just he's a cowboy. He's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird to me that people are like, they attack the character. I'm like, did you not see how those movies are written?
Right.
Like, he's not the main character of this series for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry. Go ahead.
Jimmy has a theme.
I got lots, man.
No,
Jimmy,
Jimmy has papers.
I got
spread
papers,
all over
guys.
the table just so you guys can see it.
Okay, because I really was shocked that I came out feeling what I felt.
I was so ready for you to hate this movie.
And then I watched it again, and I was like, no, everything I felt was exactly the same. When I watched it the second time, I had the exact same experience. So I was like, I wasn't just projecting something cool onto this. So, like, it's basically he goes from learning to trust no one to trust the loyal ones. Okay, so like there's line like you put your faith in the wrong people's hand. Right. Every single fucking choice that Han makes in this movie, the movie is and the events are pushing him to fend for himself, but he actually he risks his life and he puts his life at risk in every single sequence. And I'm not going to read them all, but I fucking wrote them down. In every single sequence, he makes a choice to trust someone who has betrayed him already or has the potential to betray him. And then he ends up paying the price for it later in the story. He is like betrayed by every single person in this story. And it even starts at the beginning, at the border. He trusts that lady is going to let Kira through. He's like, everything's going to be okay. And she doesn't. She fucking does. She lets him through and not the other person.
The movie builds him as a loner.
Yeah.
It makes him into a loner.
So the lesson that I saw him learn is learn to put your faith in the right people instead of the wrong ones. Chewie. Right. So like, that's what's awesome is I was like not expecting any depth from this movie. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is going to be like popcorn fare. But I actually found depth in this movie. Chewie, they both have inner and outer goals, which we haven't really talked about on the podcast before. And I think this is another good example, good learning example. Your character doesn't have to have an inner and outer goal, but a really good character will have a need and a want, right? So, like, Chewie actually says it out loud what he wants. He wants to rescue enslaved Wookiees. Mm-hmm. We fucking see him achieve that. He has a whole, like, action scene where he does exactly what he said he wanted to do a few scenes before, right? So he achieves his want. And we learn he has lost his tribe, his family. So he needs family. And who does he find it? He finds it in Han. Yeah. So there's Chewbacca. He has a fucking need and a want, and he achieves both. That's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. This movie didn't need that, but look what they did. Han is the same thing. Yeah. Han says he wants to be a pilot, get his own ship, and travel the galaxy free from authority. He does that. We see him do all those things. What does he need? He says, I don't have people. He needs a tribe. He needs family, and he finds it in Chewbacca. Like, I didn't expect that from this movie, and I think it did both of those things. I think fucking Chewbacca and Han Solo had inner and external goals that, like, I wouldn't expect this movie to care to do. So, yeah, I think it's a good teaching example. Yeah.
I like the fact that Han and Chewie became natural friends.
Yeah.
Yes, they kind of met in, like, a state of hell, but I was really worried as I was watching the movie the first time that it was going to, like, test their friendship in weird ways to make them earn their friendship past the initial, you know what I mean? But it didn't. It just was like, now these guys are buddies for the rest of their life.
Yeah. It felt very natural.
I like the smoothness of it.
Yeah.
I like the fact that,
from the end of the first scene, and I love that scene. Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah. It didn't make it like falsely earned through pain, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it didn't need that.
No, but it worried me.
Right.
You thought they were going to do something.
I walked into this movie worried about a lot of things, and that was one of them. Where I was like, don't make that so when I watch the original trilogy, I have to think about all this horrible
all the
shit
hardship
they had to do to become buddies. Like, can we just have them be friends?
And they pretty much did that.
They pretty much are.
Yeah.
And something I wanted to say too about the way I viewed this movie the second time, where I think as far as Han's concerned. I don't think he is a deep character. I feel like this entire movie, what it does best is it justifies that moment in A New Hope when he shows up in the end battle.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of obvious they do it, but I was like, this
it really
movie,
does.
Like, if there's one question the whole movie answered is like, it's that one.
Is he capable of
New
that?
Hope,
Yeah.
is he really just leaving with the money?
Yeah.
It's like they took a whole nother movie just to tell you, he would return. And
It's a good call.
I feel like it answers this 40-year-old question
It's
really
a good call. Yeah.
Yeah. It's written by the same people, so yeah.
Yeah. No shit.
No, duh. Yeah.
The one thing I ran into a problem with this movie, and this is related a little bit to the sequence method, was how he just ran into the woman he was looking for.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I want to hear you.
And they just kind of punted the whole, it's like, at first I was like, wow, they're doing a good job setting up an internal need that he's going to have to get the spaceship. And then, like nothing, the easiest thing, he just sees her, and they actually act kind of okay with each other. They're like old Facebook friends or something.
Yeah.
They weren't even that, like, she didn't even hug him or anything, or, it was like, okay. And I kind of get why, because she's done things that you wouldn't want to know about. But yeah, that was the one part of me. I was like, okay, this isn't the 3-act structure I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So you were saying, Jimmy, you
okay? So like, there's a rule.
coincidence.
So there's a rule, and Jamie and I have talked about this in the past. I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast, but we've talked about it outside because, like, the rule is, and I don't know. I think Rossio is the guy who makes a statement about this coincidence rule. You get one coincidence. I mean, it's not his rule, but he articulates it
one
well.
coincidence, and it's often the inciting incident or the catalyst.
Right, it's the catalyst.
Usually.
It's like the thing that the movie
sometimes not, but
grows
sometimes.
out of.
Yeah.
And this one makes this weird ass decision. I think it's a really weird decision. I agree with you. I did not like it at all. It saves it, so it's like it is the only coincidence in the movie. So technically, by definition, we should forgive it because that's what the audience does. We usually forgive one, but it's so late in the movie that it's like this is way too easy.
Yeah, and
just to clarify, we're talking about the moment they meet each other.
Yeah,
on
when
the ship,
Kira just so happens to be
Okay,
on Dryden Voss's ship, just so happens to be because the story needs her to be. Yeah, it's lazy.
Hey, what's up? Oh, hi. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that whole thing we thought we were going to be spending the movie trying to figure out.
Right,
Here
she's
she is.
here.
Which is like the only kind of subversive reason I kind of like it, because it was like, oh, so the movie we were going to watch is not happening.
Right,
Because
this
that
is
just
gonna be
ended
different.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
And tonally, there are certain movies that support that. So I think the Marvel movies go a long way to being okay that Thor's just floating in space near the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
That works.
And because they're
He's
serialized,
the body they hit.
yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay.
It's like it's questionable whether that's in.
To be fair, though, they weren't looking for Thor.
Right.
That
Right.
even though we know that they're all
they know
gonna be,
Thanos. He knows they're in the universe.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
they have a lot in common.
in-
They need each other.
I'm just saying their goal wasn't looking for
In the
him
words
like
of
this one.
Deadpool, lazy writing.
Yeah,
But it
It works.
It doesn't kill you because
because it's a
Tonally-
raccoon and Thor.
yeah,
Right.
tonally it's established that this is a stylized artificial universe.
Right.
I think this Star Wars universe is slightly to the right on the meter.
Right, I
or
agree with
something.
you.
They're slightly a little more serious, slightly a little more
Right.
realistic.
Everything feels
So-
real, even
so-
in its own world.
So again, it's the one thing, but it was kind of a weird reboot. It felt strange.
Yeah,
it felt,
I agree.
It didn't feel like nuanced or organic. It just felt a little odd.
I
Once
agree.
again, I like the cat.
He likes.
I really just, it was like, oh, there she is. Like, okay.
Like, what the fuck?
Like, on one hand, it is lazy, but it's almost like it's so obvious that they just wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, she's here. Okay. It could happen.
It could, I
It could.
guess.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, how nice for
Well,
the storytellers.
I mean, that's why if you have one coincidence, it can be the story of your life. It's not like all those things happen to make it happen. But that one time you ran into the girl from your past. That's what the story's about. So that's why it's okay. Because that is what a story is.
Yeah, it's
like,
okay
if I said, what's the story of your life, Jimmy? And you said, that time I ran into Harrison Ford at the mall and we partied all night. The random part is you running into Harrison Ford in that aspect. Or maybe not.
I mean,
your lifestyle.
Yeah.
People have real anecdotes that
it's true.
That
coincidence does happen in
I
life.
was looking for this person, I lost touch with them, and I ran into
why
them
I think
one day.
we forgive one.
Yeah.
We forgive one, but when the story starts piling it up, and I'll read a lot of scripts,
dude.
It's a huge part of like one of my main criteria when I go through a script is how many things are convenient for the storyteller, but not motivated by what we're seeing.
it can become, if you have too many coincidences, it can become like listening to somebody's dream.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I was in 12th grade and then this person showed up and then this happened and then I moved into a haunted house. And it's like, okay, I don't know. So you keep stacking the coincidences. That's what it ends up being.
Once again, bring up Deadpool, because then you throw, like, the reason that franchise is great. Now you throw in Domino, and now you've got a coincidence explainer.
And that motivates everything. Everything becomes motivated by her powers.
Right.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that there's that scale that I talk about, that Robert McGee scale with the anti-plot down in the corner. An anti-plot is full of coincidences.
Yeah.
So that is things like he mentions in his book, Wayne's World could be anti-plot.
Right.
And I think Deadpool is getting closer to the anti-plot.
And like you said, that fits the tone of that
even Wayne's
story.
World's kind of a meta.
It is
Humor to it.
And that fits the world of that story
It does.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think plot was ever the reason people love Wayne's World.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you can handle a
Dude, it's got a great plot.
I love the plot of Wayne's World.
I would think something like Scary Movie would fall in the anti-plot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I agree with you with here, it did not work. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went along with it because I enjoyed the ride, but it was the one
I'm agreeing it doesn't work.
Out.
I'm saying I like it.
Okay, good.
It doesn't, but it's a bad, sloppy decision.
Good.
I just like the fact that it was like, oh, hey.
You know what it felt like to me? It felt like, have you ever watched a television show and they switch showrunners mid-season?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they suddenly just can all the plots that were going before in one episode.
None
and then
of
they move
that
on.
matters.
Do you think this coincidence with Kira is like a leftover from the Lord Miller something or other?
Honestly, if I didn't know better, that's what it feels like. I don't know better.
Or they were trying to fix something they couldn't.
To me, when I see things like that, it feels like they come down to a crossroads and they can't figure out the organic way to do it. So they just say, we're okay with it. We'll compromise. We'll do it this way.
We'll figure out a way to make it work.
Let me ask you this.
I don't know. I'm giving Kasdan some credit and saying,
I don't want to spend too much time on it, but like, if you guys had to just go in there and try to fix this little problem, what would you think to do first? Because I would have to be some sort of message to Han, or
usually it's like she tried to get Han, you know what I mean?
Or she's the one that hired.
She manipulated the situation to get him, or he knew about her, like he manipulated his way on the Dryden Voss's ship. It was something.
You reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
But in this case, Dryden Voss has no clue that he's with them until he shows up.
Yeah.
So you'd have to reverse engineer even further back.
Yeah. It would just be all. It would change a lot of stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's no real quick fix.
No,
there's no line of dialogue.
Usually,
I got this email.
Usually, when there's a coincidence that happens that makes no sense, it's not an easy fix because it shouldn't be the reason.
Necessity.
Yeah, exactly.
They had to do the coincidence because otherwise they have to fix everything.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's a symptom of a bigger problem usually. But yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? Any other?
I mean, I had something, but I think we've done enough. Going through that sequence is a lot. The ahas. I mean, there's so many, dude. The ahas.
I mean, I think addressing them
briefly. So another thing. Are you fine with me going?
Yeah.
I think we should. Yeah.
So another thing that and it kind of goes in line with the good news, bad news, but not really. It's really no good news in the whole third act. It's all bad news. Mm-hmm. So a lot of writers, a lot of new writers will have this like final act that's basically like, I call them aha moments. I'm not sure where I got that, but like it's like aha.
I've definitely heard that before.
The Scooby-Doo unmasking, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll read scripts that have like 6-7 Scooby-Doo unmaskings in the last 10 pages of the script, right? And you're like,
and it's not a
but
comedy.
This guy was actually a woman, and this person was this and that. It's just like these
the Palma's Mission Impossible type of thing.
Yeah, I've actually read things that have 6 or 7 of those in the last 10 pages. Yeah. But like they're massive reversals of expectation that pile on with one another, and after 2 or 3 they lose their dramatic impact because it's like, oh, it's another. Mm-hmm. Oh, mm-hmm. Now it's the 4th one. Oh, and by the 5th one you're like, what the fuck ever.
Once again, oddly enough, I think Wayne's World does it to comedic effect at the end of Wayne's World.
Comedic effect.
Right, no, but I'm saying we just brought it up.
They're
it's
like,
funny
this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's playing with exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so And it also kind of like could also go in line with it's basically like one high tower surprise after another, right? This thing has like a 10-point finale.
Yeah.
But so this, by my count, this has 8 aha moments in the last 15 minutes of the movie. 8.
Wow.
And what's the max recommended?
I think 2 or 3.
Okay.
Right?
You know, a lot of times they align with your structural elements.
Yeah.
You know, like midpoint, all is lost.
Yeah.
High tower surprise. So usually you get 3 or 4 tops.
3 or
Tops.
4. And I'm fine. And I think it's important to reverse reversing expectation is like everything. That's like the key to good storytelling.
Hey,
right?
rug pulls. That's
But
what
it's
they are.
like it's fucking like anvils from the sky. These aren't Deus Ex Machinas, but like it's just so much.
Yeah. It's kind of like when we talked about death last time. The more you resurrect people, it starts losing its value.
Losing its emotional impact, right?
If everyone is something else, then no one is anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's perfect, Bob. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Here are all of them. Ready? They're confronted by the pirates. Well, at least we've got Lando over there who can help us. Aha! Lando fucking leaves.
So I did kind of love the visual.
Oh, I loved it. It was
that
hilarious.
moment's great.
Dude,
Backing
it's
out.
hilarious.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
aha! Lando's leaving.
Yeah.
Okay. All seems lost for Han and the others, but aha! Unmasking, the pirates are trustworthy.
They're good people.
They're good people. Oh my gosh.
It's Willow. Okay.
Han's plan to fool Dryden seems to be working, but aha! Beckett is secretly a bad guy and working against them all along. Oh, but guess what? Dryden seems to have the upper hand and all seems lost, but aha! Han and Chewie knew that Beckett was bad all along, and they planned for him to have that aha moment against them. And then, so it's aha! It's decoy coaxium. It's not real. So there's another one.
Then, aha, it is.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Kira holds Han at knife point, and it looks like Han is a goner. But aha! She betrays Dryden and kills Dryden. All along, she was with Han. But she says, "Go save Chewie. I'm right behind you." But aha! She's not right behind him. She is actually working for aha! The Sith. And she's going to abandon him. And then one last one at the end. He goes and confronts Beckett to save Chewbacca, Han, and you think it's going to be one of these scenarios where Beckett talks his way out of it, but aha! Han shoots him. So it's just like, it's
Does who the Sith is count as aha? Or is that because it's not story motivated?
What?
Who specifically the Sith is?
Oh, well, yeah.
Is
that an aha?
Yeah.
Is that-
It's just so much, dude. And it's like,
You know what this
all
makes me
of those
think
things happen.
This makes me think of the sloppiness of Mac's character in Indy 4. That was like nothing but aha moments that were handled so
That's a good
badly,
call.
where he kept changing his allegiance to Indy during scenes.
during the
Yeah, right.
scenes. Yeah. So for me,
Sorry, I just thought it made me
2 or
think
3
that,
of those would have been great.
Yeah.
There's all of those happen in like the span of 10 minutes.
It's kind of funny. I can almost see them, why they come up with them. Some of them are story related, like Lando taking off. Others are more like
I feel like
franchise.
that was gag related.
Gag
yeah,
related.
and it
That's
was
a
great,
gag.
but it was
But
the
also-
first one that it counts as an aha to me. Oh shit!
It gets rid of him. You know, like we
Yeah.
don't want to deal with him. We don't have another. So
For
let's
a
get rid of him.
later date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some of the other ones, I could see them arguing are like, well, that's how heist movies work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because you could
yeah.
feel there's about 3 of them that are heist movie related. They're
Yeah.
Ocean's 11 in space.
I
kind of
think
thing.
they're all cool on their own.
Yeah, and then some of them are like franchise related, like
Yeah.
Darth Maul,
Darth
and
Maul,
stuff like
the
that.
Sith. Yeah. So maybe other people would argue that they weren't aha moments, but just compiling them on one after the
I
other.
think that's the thing. They're stacked.
They're
so much.
stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The change I would make, not once again, I'm not
Lawrence
anyone.
Kasdan.
I'm not Lawrence Kasdan. I would have never made Beckett turn. I would have made Dryden Voss kill Beckett, and I would have just done the ahas with the coaxium and
I like
Kira,
that.
and just get rid of the Beckett
Captain-
stuff. Dryden Voss kills Beckett. You know,
just takes him out of the equation.
Yeah, or Beckett lives. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
him. I didn't need him to be a scumbag in the
Gotcha.
end. I don't know. if the movie built up to that being like a shock in any way.
We knew that was coming.
Yeah, I was kind of like,
yeah.
His turn was not interesting.
Yeah, and maybe that's what they were thinking. They were thinking a lot of these, like Kira killing Dryden, we think that's going to happen, so it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But it's just like you said, and like I've been saying, it's the one on top of the other. It's kind of, it's just like you don't get it. It's sort of like sort of like a comedy act, right? And a joke happens, and then you're laughing and you miss the other joke. You know, it's kind of like the same effect. You're like, wait, that just happened? That's a big deal. Wait, what just happened after that?
You could actually fix this in editing almost. Yeah. Like the coaxium fake out is enough, and then Akira just straight up attacks Dryden.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Good.
Like she doesn't
need. Faster.
You don't even give the moment where Han is pondering, is she going to hurt me or not, or attack me? You know what I'm saying? You just get rid of that.
That's a good call. Yeah, you could have just edited
the coaxium fake out is good enough by itself.
Yeah, and it's a good one.
And that is more in line with like
it's gonna blow.
That's more in line with the adventure movie heist aesthetic than all the rest of the kind of housekeeping Star Wars bullshit.
Right.
Sorry, yeah.
But no, I mean, I said a shit ton on this one. I took up the majority.
Well, first off, stop feeling guilty.
Yeah, that's why you're here.
Only Jimmy would feel guilty for talking into a mic too much during a podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it.
I think there's a lot to learn from
this
script.
We all liked this movie.
Yeah.
Which I actually wasn't expecting. So
no, I wasn't either.
I was not. I was kind of expecting Jimmy to dislike it and me to be really lukewarm. Jamie, you're always the curveball in that. So
I had a feeling I was gonna like it, but and I kind of did. I liked it as much as I thought I was, and I kind of went into it with high hopes. I liked some of the later trailers, and I liked Ron Howard, and I don't know.
It's a simple adventure movie done by a master worksman.
I didn't have high expectations.
I love Ron Howard.
I know I love Ron Howard too, and I don't like some of his movies like a lot.
Me too.
But I love so many of his movies so much. He's like he's kind of. I hope he gets another one that he can do from Inception.
Oh, I would love to see it.
It isn't a mess, like. But I don't know if we're gonna ever.
I just hope he makes another Da Vinci Code movie because they're the bomb.
Oh God. Well, we're never talking about those.
And I know I mentioned it, but like,
what? Not Tom Hanks fans? What's wrong with you?
If this was a bigger hit, quote unquote, I would have gotten another Willow movie too.
Yeah,
I feel like the box office is pretty much determined that Willow is never happening again. That's okay. We don't need another Willow.
I mean, Val Kilmer's pretty old, man.
It would have been neat. But
Amazon might buy it, make it into a TV series.
It's so true.
Fine, whatever. You guys got anything left to say on Solo?
What did we learn? I mean,
what's the lesson?
I think this, the sequence approach, thinking about not only is it useful for us to, break a story, but also it might pull out a different type of story from us. It might pull out the sort of unpredictable, like if you're worried about formula from these other structure methods, maybe go down to the sequence approach and give it a try.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. For me, I learned that if you throw your one allowed coincidence in the middle of your movie instead of the beginning, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Play your coincidence card.
Yeah, play your coincidence card early, preferably from the catalyst standpoint. Make it the catalyst of your story.
Be a good poker player like Lando or whatever that game they play.
Yeah, what a weird device.
It is a weird game that no one knows
watching it understands, and you have to only cheer by the characters. I thought that was pretty funny. Like, he puts down a hand, and I'm like, I don't know what that is until somebody notes what it is. So.
Everybody goes, yeah!
Right.
Yeah. Don't do that in your scripts either.
I was going to say, if I learned anything, I think... Number one, I've learned way too much from you guys about Solo than I didn't think. You guys define Solo in better than I think I ever could in my own brain. So thank you. But I learned that I really like serialized storytelling more than 3-act structure and Save the Cat stuff. I'm more a fan of this.
Yeah.
Personally than I am. I like the chunks.
It makes them interesting.
Yeah, I like the fact that you can make 8 short films.
Yeah.
Into a film. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That seems way more manageable.
Oh yeah,
for a human brain than I've read Save the Cat, and to retain half that stuff is like
you spend a week on. I mean, I don't know. Everybody has their own different methods, but I will write 10 pages at a time. I'll write the sequence, and then I'll have 8 different sequences.
You
and I'll have the
got a
movie.
full-length movie.
Yeah.
And you can Google the sequence approach. There's also a book.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Chris Soth, but I think you have to buy like 10 books.
There's a guy named it's Paul Joseph Galino. It's called
Can't they just make instructional videos? Come on.
They have those too.
Yeah.
There's so we'll say that then. There is a DVD. This guy has a DVD, and he has a book, Paul Joseph Galino, Screenwriting the Sequence Method. The DVD is like $15.
I want a
like
Blu-ray.
an
I
hour.
want HD.
It was recorded in like the early 2000s.
Okay.
But those are very good resources. That's how I learned about this.
Yeah,
So.
I read his book. He teaches at USC.
Yeah,
That's the
USC.
method
Yeah.
that they use. Yeah.
Okay, so we just plugged some other guy's thing.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got on Solo.
Yeah, man.
That's all I got.
Thank you for listening,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you for listening. And Internet, I hope you enjoy a positive review of Solo, a Star Wars story. You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring 2 professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.